photosynthesis and the breaking down of organic compounds. And then we're going to go right into our first organic molecule, first of our organic polymers that make up living material, the carbohydrates. So organic molecules, again, contain carbon, with the exception of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. Carbon itself is electroneutral, which means it always shares electrons. You're never going to form a carbon ion. It's never going to lose or gain them. And it can form 4 covalent bonds with other elements. This next statement, carbon is unique to living systems. I'm not sure I agree with that wording. Carbon is definitely used uniquely in living systems, but carbon exists outside of living systems as well. But in any event, it's a very important molecule, atom, forming a large number of carbon compounds. The 4 carbon compounds we will deal with are carbohydrates, used for energy mostly, lipids or fats, used for making cell membranes, proteins, doing almost everything in the cell, and nucleic acids, which are instructions for proteins. So one of the great things about carbon compounds or organic compounds is that they are polymers. They are chains of similar units called monomers. We've got monosaccharides and carbohydrates, carbon atoms and lipids, and amino acids and proteins, nucleic acids and nucleotides and nucleic acids. And they are all synthesized in a dehydration synthesis reaction. So you attach monomers together using a dehydration synthesis, which means a water molecule is removed. And they're all broken down using a hydrolysis reaction. You separate the monomers by adding water across the bond holding them together. So monomer 1 donates an OH, monomer 2 donates an H. That water is gone, and now these 2 monomers are linked together. In the reverse of that, you add water to that bond, and an H goes to one, and OH goes to the other. A great example of that is carbohydrates. Dehydration synthesis is used to attach glucose and fructose together. When the water is released, you get the disaccharide sucrose, and it goes back the other way too. It's a reversible reaction. If you add the water back, you can go back to fructose and glucose. So let's look at carbohydrates. Carbohydrates include sugars and starches. They have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The hydrogen and oxygen are in a 2-to-1 ratio, so you really can think of it as a hydrated carbon, a carbon with a water attached to it. They can be either monosaccharides, which are single sugars, the smallest unit, that would be the monomer of a carbohydrate. Disaccharides are 2 sugars hooked together, and polysaccharides are many sugars hooked together. Monosaccharides are how carbohydrates are formed through the process of photosynthesis. They contain between 3 and 7 carbons, so we can write the CH2O to the nth power to give us our general formula, with N being the number of carbons. Some of the ones that are going to be very important to us are going to have 6 sugars, glucose, that's going to be our major energy source. Within DNA and RNA, there are 2 sugars, ribose and deoxyribose, that have 5 carbons. They are, again, monomers of carbohydrates, monosaccharides. Some important monosaccharides out there would be glucose, fructose, galactose, deoxyribose, and ribose. Disaccharides are good ways to store sugars, especially in plants. They are too large to go through a cell membrane, but some important disaccharides are those that we use for sweetening. Table sugar would be sucrose, maltose, and lactose. They are formed by dehydration synthesis of 2 monosaccharides. Sucrose, again, table sugar. We can use hydrolysis to break the glucose away from the fructose. Glucose would be maltose. This is what we have in seeds that are sprouting, and lactose is found in milk. Polysaccharides are more than two joined together, and then usually it's a lot more than two. A starch is a carbohydrate form, polysaccharide form, storage form used by plants, whereas glycogen is the carbohydrate storage form used by animals. Plants also have cellulose, which they use for structural support. Polysaccharides are not very soluble. They don't dissolve well in water. And that's about all we're going to say about carbohydrates.